Okay, everyone. So today we're going to do, this is going to be the first time doing this, so not quite sure how it's going to turn out, but we'll see. This is going to be a deep dive into one of the props. And this particular one is going to be the Han Solo blaster, also known as the Greedo killer. Now, this is the blaster that was only used in this exact scene here.
I don't have it with me. Tell Jabba.
Just pause right there. This is the only time you see this prop. Other than that, it's not in the movie. Any other point. Only these under the scene shots, under the table shots, that were pickup shots that were filmed in California. This was not part of the original production in England. So these were shot here in the States, in California. George Lucas needed a pickup shot with a close-up. And so hence they built this. Now, what you'll see here on screen is this is basically the screen used version. The only photos of this prop that most people have access to are of the post-production or the Chronicles version, where it has different mount rings here. And we'll look at that here in a bit. But as you see it here in this scene, this is the only time you ever see that. Just the close-ups.
Do you think I had a choice?
That's it. Those two scenes. The rest of it,
My dead body.
as you'll notice, this is the actual version.
Yes, I bet you have.
That's how it's supposed to be. Anyway, so the only time you ever see that is those two close-up shots underneath the table. That's the only time you ever see that prop. Now, let's go over here and take a look at, this is actually what you can see. This is what you can see under the table. This has been, screen capture that's been enhanced and kind of brightened up quite a bit. Now, you'll notice that you have these two weaver rings here, and you can actually even see where the line is to tighten those down. At least this one. This one's a little bit harder, but it looks like straight up and down. But you can see that these are also the high-rise version. So the ones that I have on mine are the low-rise version. You can tell because the line that that picks up where the actual ring sits onto the base is above the large diameter thumb screw on the screen use prop. I chose these on purpose because the high rise looks super goofy. It's sitting quite a bit farther up, and I don't like the way it looks at all. But you can see here, and I think the reason why they did that is for clearance of the holster. There's no way to tell for sure. But you can see the details there. You can see the little screw in the grill holding it on. You can see that the windage knob cover is dented in. You can see that very easily there. My first one was dented in, but that's pretty much all you can really get. That's the best shot you see of the whole thing, and I don't even know if that's Harrison Ford's hand. We don't know. So in any case, let's take a look at some of the other pictures here. The times where you can see Harrison Ford using it. Now, this is a shot of the promo photos. So, unfortunately, it's not super high res, but you can see it here. And by this point, during the Chronicle stuff, they have already taken these two screen use knobs off and have replaced it with the football style. One has a large thumb wheel, one has a small thumb wheel. And the front one just floats. It literally connects to nothing. It's really weird that it's just floating up here in the front. And we'll take a look at that here in a second. But I want to go over these photos with you. Now, this is an experiment for, this is what I plan to do. So I'm going to make a second tier here on Patreon. And the second tier, I will be putting either a Dropbox or a link of some sort to share these actual photos, or the ones that I can show you, with the Patreon supporters, and I'll have them, you know, they'll have my watermark on them at the very, in a very inconspicuous spot at the bottom corner or something. But I'm going to make them available to the second tier of Patreon supporters so that you guys can have a full access and look at those as well. Otherwise, a regular Patreon tier, we're just going to go through them on here, and you can see what I'm talking about, but I won't be able to share those. Just a little bit of added incentive. So this next image is also from that shoot, that same shoot. This one we have a pretty good shot up close, up front of the grill. You can see how wide it is. You can see the front lens for the scope. See the front of the flash hider. Pretty cool. Then this is a slightly larger version of it. Now this one's from the Star Wars archives. You'll see there. But it's pretty much the same as this picture. But this one is higher res version of that picture. This is just the whole photo. Now we have another one here. It's just another of this series from a different angle. Because even in the front lens, you can see the two umbrellas that they were using to light that photo. This is just a close-up of his belt, the blaster in his belt, which looks like the Mersan Power 5. Let's see what else we got here. Here's another shot from that series of Harrison with just a simple paper background, not cropped out or airbrushed or anything, and he's got an E11. Let's see what else we got here. Here's a better shot of that picture. It's a little bit slightly different angle, but again, you can see Harrison with the Greedo killer there. Here's the other shot. Here's a better shot version of the first one we saw. Doesn't really show much more detail, really, unfortunately, but because it's pretty compressed. But here we're going to get into a little bit more of the actual Chronicles photos. Now this is some of these photos you'll see floating around on the internet, and I don't remember what the original source was, but I do know that I personally edited them and made the blacks come out blacker and stuff like that just to see the mount, and somehow that's been resaved and saved, and it's all kind of different sizes. So I have the originals of those, super high res, but you'll see those floating around the internet with my color correction stuff. But this is a pretty good shot. You can kind of see everything you need to. You can even see the serial number, 24774. So if anybody has the scope 24774, you are in luck. You have the screen use scope. If not, then keep looking. Mine is 23681, so mine's a little bit older than the one that's actually up being used for the prop. But there it is. You have an MGC Mauser. Well, we still don't know what this grill part is. Some sort of heat sink, it looks like, maybe for a chip or who knows. M9 flash hider, and of course our compact super 2.5 by whatever. I don't know what the magnification is. The other one is 4 by 31 that I've had many of those, so maybe it's 2.5 by 31. Anyway, what's curious about this is you'll notice that the windage knob is cocked up a little bit. Now, I've had a number of these over the years, and what happens to make that happen is these are brass screws holding in the windage knob base. And I've had one come broken, and oddly enough, it pops up just like that. So let me check my time on the video here real quick, and then we will get into more. Okay, so back to it. So you'll notice that I just talked about the windage knob base popping up a little bit, and that's because those brass screws have been known to break. At least the ones I've had 2 of them with windage knob bases with broken screws. The other curious thing is the front of the scope kicks up a bit. That has nothing to do with this. There must be a bend in it for some reason around this point where the football style ring is. I don't know how that would happen, but it is made of aluminum, so it's quite possible, you know, it's been banged up. Let's look at the other side of this. Now here's the original photo. This is the original photo. What it looks like when it came from the source. Very dark. This is the Chronicles photo. Now, what you also see that it's here. And this is also, I've doctored this a bit so I can see some of the details of it. It's not particularly high res in this photo that I have, but we have this, and then I've fixed it up a little bit more. Here you can see this is the total. This is the one that you see pretty much on Google when you search for it. You'll see that I've enhanced the bracket to make it stand out a bit. But anyway, here again you see that the windage knob base is kind of kicked up a little bit because the screw base must be broken or not screwed in all the way. And also you see this curious upturn of the front of the scope. Also, what's funny is the larger thumb wheel football ring is literally attached to nothing. It's just floating out there. I don't understand why it's done that way, but that's how it is in the Chronicles version. Screen use version did have, of course, the ones like this, but the Chronicles version and the promo photos version had these football rings, one of which had a large wheel, one of which had a small wheel. But the front one was just literally just floats out there doing nothing. Then you have, let's look at the scope mount itself. Now this has to be custom made. It looks like it's custom made, but let me pause real quick and I'm going to show you something. Okay, so what I have here in my hand is a piece of rail from a Weaver scope mount setup. Now this Weaver rail fits all of these Weaver rings. It has has the notches for the underside of the retention screw. Now these come in different sizes. I've had one that's actually exactly the same size as the mount here. But what's curious is there's also a higher base one that might actually be a found part right there. I don't see why they would go through the trouble of machining that when you can find a found part that is exactly what it needs to be right there. So you have that. And also here is a football style, what do you call it? Ring, Weaver ring. Now, I don't know. This is the larger wheel one. It matches up. So anyway, this is what and I don't know if the rise is correct or not. I'd have to look at it more in detail, but this is what the football ring looks like versus the capped rings. Anyway, let's go back to the original prop here. So, a couple things to point out. The gap between the upright here and the first disc and the rear disc is different. This one is very close. This one has a little bit more space. Also, the front of the, it's hard to tell. I think that this has been turned up just a little bit. Again, it's hard to tell. We have an overlap here of the scope mount on the crossbar. It just overlaps a little bit. It is crooked in the original. But this is pretty simple. It's just an MGC, and it's one of the MGCs that did not have the Waffen stamp or any of the Mauser markings or anything. Just pretty much straightforward thing there. So my replica is kind of a screen used-ish, but it does not have the higher rise rings here, and I think it's all the better for it. But that's just my personal preference. So let's see what else we have here. Then we have to talk about compact super scopes. Now these are some pictures of my original 4x31 and another 4x31 that I had. Body-wise, they're exactly the same. Just the windage knobs have changed. Apparently they had a number of different types of windage bases. You can see here, and I don't know if we have pictures of the serial numbers. Yes, we do. So at some point, the newer ones got a different windage knob base. Maybe because those screws kept breaking. Anyway, this 4x31 was closer to the Harrison Ford number. But you'll notice, and I've had these in a number of different iterations where they're just completely different. But that is pretty much it. Here's the screen use version again. And again, the second tier Patreon supporters, I will make sure I have an image gallery set up with these images, everything that I have on the Greedo killer. There's not much, but some of them are pretty decent quality. And so that is it for the Greedo killer. There's not much to it. It's only on screen for a couple seconds, but it does have. It's one of those that's fairly accessible, except for getting the real parts is very hard. This scope is super hard to find. The Weaver rings, no problem. Field Marshal and Solos Hold make replica versions of all the mounts and stuff. I think Solos Hold got the grill better. I did the prototypes for the Solos Hold mount, but there was one detail on it that got skipped, and that's the overlap underneath. The mount doesn't overlap, it's flush with it, and that was just a detail that got missed in production. But otherwise, this is a my own made mount here, and then a Solos Hold scope, a Solos Hold grill, and of course real vintage Weaver knobs, vintage scope, and M9 flash hider. So that's pretty much it, guys. It's a simple prop as far as what goes into it, but finding the real parts is very hard. Field Marshal has the better scope, no doubt. In fact, Field Marshal, I lent Field Marshal my scope, and he laser scanned it and replicated his scope based on that. And Aaron had a cast from somebody who had an original 2.5, but there was a detail missed there where the back of the bell is a bit smaller than it should be. It should be almost flush with this knurl, and it's a little bit smaller like the rest of the body. So it's just a little bit of a little detail difference there. But either way, they're good parts. Something can be done about the overlap at the bottom, so that's not a big deal, whichever one you can get parts from. Right now, I think Field Marshal has everything in stock. So, but I do believe Solos Hold grill is better. So anyway, that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Appreciate your support so much, and I hope we can continue this with something that has more to it soon.